Get in the pit, Julie.
She can't remember what happened.
I'm done talking to you.
Jessica and Daniel Groves were two of the worst parents you could ever meet. And if you don't believe me, then why was their son Dylan born with drugs in his system? He was born addicted to drugs when he came out. They took the child away, and eventually, somehow, these two pieces of crap got custody of Dylan again. But not for long, because Dylan ended up passing away. Jessica embarrassingly tried to lie about the ways in which her baby was harmed. They found skull fractures. Granted, Dylan was a young child. Jessica said that a dream catcher was the thing that caused the injuries. And that was her story, and she was sticking to it, while her pathetic husband was sitting there crying on the side. Now, luckily for us, we don't always have a hero in the criminal justice system, but today, on this day, we did. A woman that I could describe only as a powerhouse. A woman that I feel like must be a mother. A woman that will stop at nothing for justice. And that woman's name is Julie. If you've been here for a while, you remember Julie. Maybe you got introduced to me by Julie. And I watched part of that trial, but I didn't see the whole thing. And I was talking to Noonie the other day, and I was like, wait a minute, we've never seen the whole trial. Believe it or not, there are more clips of Julie. So I'm gonna let her take it away. I've given you a small portion of what happens in this trial, but it's always interesting to listen to the opening statements. I'm gonna give you guys a little recap if you're new to watching things around court, justice, and the criminal system. Long story short, the prosecutor, that is our person that is representing the state. They are supposed to be representing truth and justice. They use all the tools at their disposal to tell a story that is true, because for prosecutors, they're not like defense attorneys. They can't really lie about stuff, okay? They have to weave the truth together as well as possible. In the prosecutor's opening statement, they're gonna explain to you an overview of what they think happened in the case and why this person is guilty or not guilty. And they're gonna also explain what else is coming up in the trial. Then the defense is gonna come in and explain, whoa, this is why this person is not guilty. Let's just see what the attorneys have to say.
State of Ohio versus Daniel A. Groves and State of Ohio versus Jessica Groves, case number 19 CR 586 A and B.
Also, let me just say, some of you guys know this, Jessica Groves is about to cry and cry and cry. And sorry, you will not be getting a lick of sympathy from me with those waterworks. You're not gonna do it. Nope. I know sometimes y'all get real empathetic on me and you're like, no, I feel bad for her. Nope, killed a child. Done. Bye, Jessica.
I believe we are ready to begin with opening statements in this matter.
How's the volume?
This time, counsel for the parties may have an opening statement. Opening statements of counsel are concise and orderly descriptions of each side's claims and defenses and the evidence counsel expects to produce in support of those claims and defenses. They are not evidence. Each side will address you once during opening statements, with the state going first. Is the state ready to proceed with opening statements?
We are. Yes, we are.
Is defense ready? Ms. Scott?
We are ready, thank you.
Mr. Stratton?
Yes, sir.
The state may address the jury.
The state, that's Julie.
May it please the court, opposing counsel, ladies and gentlemen of the jury,
Julie.
good morning.
Good morning.
Again, my name is Julie Cook Hutchinson, and I, along with prosecuting attorney Shane Tiemann, represent the state of Ohio. Before we discuss what it is that the state must prove and what we believe the evidence will be, I too want to thank you for your service. The service that you are about to complete here on behalf of your community is very vital to our American justice system.
Thank you, Julie.
I also want to apologize to you in advance.
Ooh.
The case you're about to hear is a difficult case. You're going to see, hear, and learn things that you cannot unsee, unhear, or unlearn. And for that, I'm sorry. Having said that, let's discuss what the charges are in this case.
Julie's a great attorney. If you've been on my channel for a while, we've seen plenty of opening statements. Opening statements of some of the craziest cases, but the prosecutor just can't come through. I don't know if it's because I'm already captivated by Julie, but I feel like I want to listen to her. Like, she as a prosecutor has really made me want to hear what is she going to say next. And dude, I love a good attorney.
The defendants Daniel and Jessica Groves are charged with 11 felony charges.
11 felonies?
His Honor, Judge Kuhn will instruct you on the law that you are to follow throughout this trial. If something I say differs from what something he says, you are to follow His Honor's instructions. You heard in voir dire the phrase, being in cahoots with someone. And you also heard in Ohio that the legal term for that is complicity. His Honor may instruct you that the defendant or defendants can be found guilty of the offense charged as a principal offender, in other words, the person who committed that crime, but also can be found guilty of that principal offense in complicity.
That's right.
In other words, they don't have to be the person who actually committed the crime. But
basically what she's saying is you may not have been in cahoots with the person that carried out a murder or assault or something like that, but if you sat there and watched several times, you're complicit and you're just as guilty. And my God, do I agree with that.
Complicit to that person or in cahoots with that person. You may be further instructed that complicity means aided or abetted.
Aided emotionally. She emotionally supported him and hurting that child. She did it too. Bring it up, Julie.
And you may also be instructed that aiding and abetting includes supporting, assisting, cooperating with, advising, inciting another to commit a crime. Complicity also includes conspiring with another person to commit a crime. State of Ohio versus Daniel Groves and State of Ohio versus Jessica Groves charges each defendant with the following felony charges. Aggravated murder.
That's right.
Requires the State of Ohio to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendants did or were complicit to purposely causing the death of baby Dylan, who was under 13 years of age at the time of the offense.
That's right.
Defendants are charged in count 2 with murder, which requires the State of Ohio to prove that the defendants did or were complicit to knowingly causing the death of baby Dylan as a proximate result of committing or attempting to commit a felony offense of violence that is a felony of the first or second degree.
Now, I just want to remind you guys, if you haven't, 1 in the chat if you're familiar with this case, 2 in the chat if you know nothing about it. If you're just coming into this, Julie does a great job of doing her opening statement, but my God, does this woman get passionate. That's what's coming up here soon. As soon as Jessica Groves starts with the waterworks on it, Julie's like, we're not doing that. I think she literally, didn't she do the point? Didn't she point too?
In count 3, the defendants are charged with kidnapping. Kidnapping requires the State of Ohio to prove that the defendants did or were complicit to, by force, threat, or deception, or in the case of a victim under 13 by any means, remove baby Dylan from the place where he was found or restrain his liberty for the purpose of hindering, impeding, or obstructing a function of the government. Count 4, child endangering, requires the State of Ohio to prove that the defendants did or were complicit to, as a parent, guardian, custodian, person having custody or control, or in loco parentis of a child under the age of 18, create a substantial risk of health or safety to baby Dylan by violating a duty of care, protection, or support, and that violation resulted in serious physical harm. Count 5, the defendants are charged with tampering with evidence, and that requires the State of Ohio to prove that the defendants did or were complicit in knowing that an official proceeding or investigation was in progress or was about to be or likely to be instituted, alter, destroy, conceal, or remove any record, document, or thing with purpose to impair its value or availability as evidence. Document or thing
said y'all about to
with
witness the
purpose to
beat down
impair
of the
its
century.
value or availability as evidence in such investigation. Count 6
Thanks,
charges
Patricia.
the defendants with interference with custody and requires the State of Ohio to prove that the defendants did or were complicit to, knowing that he or she had no privilege to do so or being reckless in that regard, entice, keep, or harbor baby Dylan from a parent, guardian, or custodian of a child under the age of 18, and that baby Dylan suffered serious physical harm as a result of that violation.
Lay it out, Julie.
Count 7, gross abuse of a corpse, requires the state of Ohio to prove that the defendant did or was complicit to treating baby Dylan's body in a way that would outrage reasonable community sensibility.
The way that somebody treats an individual after they, I mean, it sounds crazy to say, after they've killed them, you could give me all the waterworks in the world. You're gonna see Jessica Groves sit here crying over what happened to Dylan, saying it was an accident, I didn't mean to. Well, then why did you try to conceal the body? Why did you put the body in some makeshift crate and bury it where no one would find it, and then not talk about it at all afterwards, and then continue on with your life and keep doing drugs, and in fact doing more drugs now because you don't have your kid?
I'm only human. I made mistakes. Don't put the blame on me.
The way somebody acts afterwards really solidifies how they felt about everything.
The remaining counts 8, 9, 10, and 11, are counts of felonious assault. And they require the state of Ohio to prove that the defendants did or were complicit to knowingly causing serious physical harm to baby Dylan. On January 10th,
Dylan time.
2019, in the early morning hours, the defendants Daniel Groves and Jessica Groves arrived by self-transport at the emergency department of Southern Ohio Medical Center
So they drove
here in Scioto County, Ohio.
to the hospital.
Several hospital employees will testify here. They will testify that for Jessica, labor was nearly complete upon arrival,
She's getting mad.
as she was dilated 9.5 out of 10 centimeters. They will testify that Jessica Groves refused to answer any questions and that a urine sample had to be taken by straight catheter.
That means they were on drugs while she was pregnant. They were on drugs when she was going into labor. I don't think they cared whether this baby came out alive or dead. That's the thought I'm getting. It sounds to me like Jessica eventually was in so much pain that she was like, all right, let's just go to the hospital. But she doesn't want to help the nurses and doctors take care of her because she knows she's on drugs, but she knows she's in pain, so she just wants to get to a hospital. She waited till the last minute. Most people go to the hospital when they're in labor.
The testimony will be the hospital staff administered no pain medications to Jessica Groves for several reasons. There were no medical records of prenatal care.
Oh, she didn't take care of the baby at all.
Jessica appeared to be under the influence but refused to answer any questions about what substances she may have taken.
No cooperation with
And
medical
not giving
staff.
medications enabled the staff at the hospital to determine what had been ingested pre-admission so that they can care for baby Dylan once he was born.
Oh my God. So they basically let her go into withdrawal to see what she was on just so that they could have the baby. Oh my God. I
It will
have
be
no idea.
claimed that Jessica, for some period, lengthy period, had no prenatal care because she did not know she was pregnant.
Do you believe that? Do you think that Jessica didn't seek prenatal care because she didn't know she was pregnant or because she didn't care about her child?
That she's had a prior pregnancy and that she was once a licensed LPN.
Oh,
Baby Dylan was delivered within approximately 30 minutes.
30
And the testimony will
minutes?
be that that delivery was uneventful. No complications in that delivery. Not long after birth, baby Dylan was taken to the nursery and put on oxygen because he was born early and needed support.
Get in the pit, Julie.
The testimony will be that neither parent
Get in the pit.
accompanied that baby to the nursery. At some point, urine was also collected from baby Dylan
I wanna
for
hear
drug
from the
screening
nurses.
purposes. And both Jessica Groves and baby Dylan had positive drug screens there at the hospital.
First of all, don't pick up that pen. Second of all, is it just me or does it look like this is the first time that Jessica Groves has picked up a pen or pencil in about 13 years? That was the slowest I need to write I've ever seen in my life. She ain't picked up a
As
pen
a result
since
of that, the
school.
hospital then notified Scioto County
Or
Children's
since she
Services.
needed to poke some
And
holes
baby
in the
Dylan was
aluminum
kept in the
foil.
nursery for 5 days, awaiting a discharge plan that the hospital and Children's Services could agree was safe. Initially, Children's Services believed that Daniel Groves was employed with Rural King and that he could submit to a clean urine test.
No.
A safety plan was discussed wherein baby Dylan would be placed with Daniel Groves, that Jessica Groves would not live in the home, and that her contact with the children in the home would be supervised by Daniel Groves.
I believe they took Dylan away early, but I wonder, has anyone that works in nursing or medical or anything, has anyone seen that before where they have to make the decision? You see that the parents are clearly negligent or on drugs or something like that, and they have a baby, and I imagine that there's some places where there's a nurse that's really fighting for, like, you are not giving this child back to them under no circumstances.
Complete a drug assessment and to undergo treatment and be compliant with that treatment. There was to be weekly contact between baby Dylan and Children's Services. However, the hospital would not agree to discharge baby Dylan.
Good.
under
They
that
had
safety
one of those
plan.
nurses.
Prior to the release of baby Dylan from the hospital, his umbilical cord was sent off for testing.
Oh my God. Tell it, Julie. Get in the pit.
Baby Dylan's U cord, or umbilical cord, showed positive for methamphetamine, amphetamine, fentanyl, and opiates, including morphine.
Meth, morphine, fentanyl.
On January 15th, 2019, Andrea Bowling became baby Dylan's foster mother as she picked him up from the hospital.
Oh, who's Andrew?
On January 16th, 2019, Scioto County Children's Services awarded emergency custody of baby Dylan to Children's Services.
Good.
During the time that foster mother Andrea Bowling had baby Dylan, he was seen twice by a pediatrician named Dr. Ali. His medical records indicate, and Dr. Ali will testify, that he was free from injury and progressing well, with the exception of some drug withdrawals.
Wow.
Baby Dylan lived with Andrea
Wow.
until January 28th, 2019, when Children's Services decided to place the baby back with Daniel Groves under circumstances similar to what was
kidding
previously
me.
discussed.
You're kidding me.
Evidence will show that Jessica was assessed by Mahajan Therapeutics for drug treatment on January 18th, 2019, and that she was compliant with treatment for less than 3 weeks.
In addiction, you relapse all the time. I was going to say, like, you know what sucks the most about addiction is when you make it to the second or third week, you're basically home free. When you're at the second and third week, that's where you start saying stuff like, I'm never going back, like, I would never touch this stuff again, da-da-da-da. What they don't really prepare you for in sobriety after you hit, like, the third, fourth week or whatever, is that one bad day where you can't handle whatever's going on and you relapse. Man, she only got 3 weeks in, but she was out the cut and she went back in.
Once the baby was placed back with them, with pediatrician appointments for less than 1 month. However, from those 2 appointments, the evidence will show that baby Dylan again was injury-free and progressing well.
So they had proof that Dylan was not hurt
The
when he was
defendants
with
also
foster
were
parents.
not compliant with Children's Services. Evidence will show that between February 4th and February 25th, Children's Services was making multiple attempts to contact this family, to no avail.
Wow.
Children's Services even went to the school of the 14-year-old sibling to attempt to get a message to the parents. Finally, on February 25th, Children's Services was successful in making contact with the family at their residence at 2241 Mount Hope Road, Otway, Ohio, here in Scioto County. From that date, February 25th, to March 28th, again, the
How is
defendants
the
were not
defense gonna
compliant with
follow
Children's
this up?
Services contact. On March 28th, Children's Services again made contact, successful contact, with the family at that Mount Hope address. Baby Dylan was wearing a long-sleeved onesie, and he did not appear to have any visible injuries. It was the last time baby Dylan was known to be alive.
So Julie is going through record by record, every record that they have of Dylan Groves, and saying he was never hurt. When he was in foster care, he wasn't hurt. When we checked in on him, he wasn't hurt, all the way up until the last report.
No calls for medical assistance for baby Dylan were ever made for that residence. That's going to be the evidence. All through April and May, Children's Services repeatedly tries to make contact. Children's Services eventually calls Rural King to attempt to make contact with Daniel Groves, and they're informed that Mr. Groves had not worked there since mid-2018.
Oh no. So I think what happened, and I could be wrong here, CPS saw that the mother is on drugs, but then the father, Daniel, he has a good job where he would normally get P tested. He probably mentions that too. And so they think, okay, maybe the mom is just on drugs and he actually has a good job and he's keeping it together. And then they find out he wasn't even employed there.
Deputies of the Scioto County
fired.
Sheriff's Office attempted to make contact. Captain Murphy and Chief Miller from the
are they
Sheriff's
getting
Office
money? Wow.
attempt to make contact. They see the
They never
defendant
tested him?
on the roadway near their home and attempt to stop them. And a pursuit ensues, and the four-wheeler they are on flees off the roadway into the woods. Juvenile court sent an employee to make contact. Finally, the Sheriff's Office obtains a search warrant for that Mount Hope residence. And on June 10th, 2019, several members of the Scioto County Sheriff's Department, the Southern Ohio Drug Task Force, and the Ohio State Highway Patrol surround the residence on Mount Hope Road, demanding that Jessica and Daniel surrender.
Wow.
The front
It's
door of the
actually good that CPS came down on them like this because there are so many children that are born into homes where the parents are severe drug addicts, neglectful, abusive, and some of them never get a call. Some of them, the authorities are never alerted. If Jessica had had a home birth, no one would probably even know that Dylan existed. So they were keeping tabs on him from the beginning. A lot of kids that are born to drug addicts, they don't get this kind of help. Or sometimes somebody makes one phone call to CPS, they follow up once, they're a manipulative, lying, stealing parent that has been manipulating people for money to get drugs for the past couple years, lies their way out of it, and then they never get help again. But these people came back to the house over and over and over again, and they really came down and they said, y'all need to give it up, and where's the baby?
Hours later, a robot is deployed inside the residence to locate Daniel Groves, who is not coming out at the demands of law enforcement. Both were transported to the Scioto County Sheriff's Department for interrogation by Detective Conkle. You will hear that Jessica Groves maintains that Children's Services has come and taken her baby.
What? That's what she said?
Evidence will be
It's
that Daniel
CPS?
Groves is dope sick in there during that interview,
Oh my God.
rolling around in the floor. Evidence will also be that he tells several stories, starting with Children's Services came and took the baby.
What is the defense gonna say?
But eventually, Daniel Groves admits that baby Dylan is dead. On June 11th, 2019, Daniel agreed to take Detective Conkle to Dylan's body. Nothing was found. The
I
evidence
wonder if she feels like he traded them in. I wonder if them cops be like, hey man, you tell us what's going on and we'll get you what you want. I don't know. Not saying they ever have to get it, but they could probably just say that when somebody's dope sick and they'll be like, all right, I'll tell you what you want to know.
that these two defendants were placed in the room together and began whispering amongst each other. The things they're saying indicate to Detective Conkle that she's been misled about where this baby's body might be. After further interrogation, Daniel Groves again agrees to take Detective Conkle to baby Dylan's body. Eventually, Daniel Groves leads the sheriff's office to a spring-fed well, 40-foot well, in the middle of a hayfield. Members of the local fire department respond to assist, and the fire department could not make it through in the truck, so they used a brush truck to get to that location. They attempted to pump water from the well. However, the pump was only successful in removing about 10 feet of the water. After that, they went back to the fire truck and they retrieved parts of an extraction kit. And with a gold metal hook, a strap, and some cord, they for 3 hours fished around in this water before they finally hooked what they thought might be the container that contained baby Dylan's body. It took several men to pull the container to the surface. Evidence will show that the container consisted of these two metal crates, or these two plastic milk crates, chained together, zip-tied, and wire-tied.
Chained together,
It was weighted
zip-tied,
down
and
with
wire-tied.
several rocks and a round metal object around Dylan's body. The container was loaded, undisturbed, for coroner's transport.
That is so intricate. This is also some drug user engineering here. They put all these rocks in there in the container to make sure it was at the bottom. Like, it is so intentional. It is so calculated. Granted how dumb they are, it's pretty calculated. They're calculating as hard as they could.
The coroner will testify that baby Dylan's death was the result of homicidal violence. Dr. Brown will testify that baby Dylan had 2 skull fractures, 2 rib fractures, upper arm fractures, lower arm fractures, and lower leg fractures. She will testify that some fractures showed signs of healing and others did not.
So they were done at different
She'll
times.
explain to you what that means.
Any of y'all in here got kids? When you have a child, it will make you grow up real fast. Real fast. And what ends up happening is when you have this kid, you're basically, if you have a lot of bad habits, because I've seen this happen with some of my friends before, the minute you have that kid, it's like you hit a fork in the road and you're like, am I going to keep, going down this path where I only have to care about myself and I don't have a lot of responsibilities? Or am I going to go down the path where I choose to be a more responsible adult in all areas of my life for myself and for my child? And some people will kind of toe these two lines for a couple of years, but eventually people make a hard choice. And I think children are a beautiful thing because a lot of times they kick our bad habits in the ass so fast. You guys have probably seen some friends before that just change overnight the minute that they have a kid. But then sometimes some people decide to stay on the path of selfishness, and this is what you get.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, by the close of this case, I submit to you that you will have proof beyond a reasonable doubt that each of these defendants is guilty of each crime that they're charged with. And at that time, I will ask you to return a verdict of guilty as to each defendant and as to each count.
Okay.
Again, I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Julie. All right, here comes the defense that has to defend them. You know what? I find... BOZE, I'm late. Sorry. Get out. Get the tardy pass. We already talked about this before. Don't come in unless you got that slip. Talk to the front office. Noonie, we got somebody checking in. I'm just kidding. Have a seat.
Let me begin the story of this tragedy.
What you about to lie to us
As most
with?
of you are aware, our community, Portsmouth and Sauter County, has been and still is ground zero for this terrible drug problem.
Okay.
We hear regularly
blaming the
about
city?
overdoses and crimes directly related to drugs. It has taken a foothold here and has devastated our friends, our family, and our whole community.
So far, his angle is the city and the drug problem is to blame, and we're all affected by this. It's affected our friends, family, the whole community. We're all in this. It's a good tactic, but I don't know if it's going to hold up against Julie. Somebody just said, boo!
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
This scourge of our modern society turns spouses against spouses.
Why do he sound like one of our founding fathers? This scourge of modern society has turned spouses against spouses, and siblings against siblings. Sorry, but hit the Dave Chappelle there for a second. What's that character he
Spouses
does?
against spouses, siblings against siblings, grandparents against grandchildren, and breaks the bonds of family. Grandparents are raising grandchildren, and in some cases, great-grandparents are raising great-grandchildren.
Great.
There are so many people trying to reverse and correct this problem. There has been this upswell in our community of people that have said enough is enough. We're going to change and come back.
When
We
is
will
he
win
going
this
to
fight.
mention Dylan? We're 2 minutes in and we haven't spoken about Dylan yet. Where's that?
The first step in winning this fight is for individuals that have been led down this path to take personal responsibility for their crimes and their sins. And that starts right here, right now.
Okay.
My client, Jessica Groves, was and still is a drug addict. There is no doubt about that fact.
Okay, all right. This is something else that defense attorneys love to do. And you'll find that liars also do this in their day-to-day. They'll take the worst thing and they'll say it as a fact. And they'll say, yep, I'm sorry, yeah. And then just try to glaze over it. And you're like, that was my biggest bullet. Well, what do I do now? And they're like, yep, I did it. I'm sorry. And then it like disarms you and you're all over the place. Good tactic. This lawyer, honestly, he's working with what he has. He really is.
He alone caused the injuries to Dylan Groves, which led to his death. She murdered Dylan Groves.
Oh my God, dude. He said just lay
She
it
will
all out.
testify that she murdered Dylan Groves. She will testify to the injuries that she caused to Dylan Groves. The 2-inch fracture on the skull.
2-inch fracture.
The 1-inch fracture on the skull. The 1/2-inch laceration on the left arm. Fracture of the left humerus.
He's trying to just say it all so that Julie doesn't have anything to say that's shocking. That's really what he wants to do.
Red contusion on the right side of the chest.
I mean, this is kind of a lot.
Healed rib fractures and the drugs in baby Dylan's system. These are the injuries caused to Dylan Groves by Jessica Groves.
Bro, that was a lot. That was a
Finally,
2-page
you might
medical
ask,
report.
Why put everybody through this ordeal? Why put everybody through this trauma? The answer is because she's going to do the right thing right now. And that right thing is to take personal responsibility for her crimes and sins. And that right thing also is to protect.
Dude, stop. Stop. They said this is a jury trial. Can y'all imagine being one of the jurors and you guys go back to deliberate and you're like, well, she did it, so we should vote guilty. And then one other guy's like, but she did take personal responsibility. Like, I would lose my mind. I don't think that
Daniel Groves had nothing to do with the death of Dylan Groves and did not cause these injuries. He was foolishly unaware of these injuries. And I say foolishly because hindsight's always 20/20.
What?
And sometimes you're oblivious to what's going on.
The child was
This is
being
especially
murdered
true
and
for
buried.
someone you have known for 20 years.
What do you mean
and that you have
oblivious?
loved.
I need to hear that again.
And sometimes you're oblivious. This is especially true from someone you have known for 20 years and that you have loved. Dylan Groves died on March 28th, and Daniel found him unresponsive. Once he found him, panic and confusion set in. And with that panic and confusion came poor decisions that leads us all to here today.
Y'all remember Julie's line? Does this look like panic?
Did he help hide the body? Yes. Did he suggest the well? Yes, he knew where this well was. Did he help craft a coffin and preserve Dylan? Yes, he did. But that is all he did. Jessica Groves.
Girlfriend's a drug addict. Fracture. She's still on drugs. He suggested the well. He made the crate. I don't know how any of this looks good. Like, I get the tactic of let me try to say what it was and try to get it out of the way early. I don't think any of this is good.
She is here in front of you today, taking personal responsibility for her crimes and her sins.
Personal
Thank you, Your Honor.
responsibility.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury,
Who the fuck is
good
this?
morning.
Maybe this is Jessica's attorney. This must be... You're kidding me. Julie had a 20-minute opening statement, and then theirs are respectively 5 minutes and 5 minutes.
Ms. Groves is the principal perpetrator in this matter. And that is in a position that has actually been held by the state
What about
in this
Daniel, though?
case, since this case was arraigned right
like-
here in this courtroom.
What the hell
In
is
fact,
he
Ms.
crying
Hutchinson
for?
actually called Jessica Groves.
Jessica is ready to go fully into the cry. And then someone said objection. She looks up like, who said that?
Actually called Jessica Groves.
That was Julie. Julie said, excuse me. Her statement isn't even 3 minutes. Oh my God, bro.
And the red flag has now come out.
Justice for Dylan. Give it to us, Julie. Get in the pit.
As I was saying, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, even the state in this case, and Ms. Hutchinson, as far as that arraignment in this matter, when this case was right here in this court for the very first time, actually labeled Ms. Groves principal perpetrator. That will be the position that Mr. Groves will hold. That is the position that actually Jessica Groves is going to own in this matter, as you heard from the opening statement.
I think they're both pieces of shit. But I mean, I guess they gotta pick one person as principal perpetrator, but y'all both nasty.
You also heard Mr. Tiemann yesterday in his voir dire and questioning of the jury. He said that they have the burden. They have the standard that they have to prove, and I will ask you that you hold them to that standard for each and every case, each and every charge in this matter. They are the ones that have to prove each and every element. They have to provide you evidence.
Do you know, you guys see why they don't bring up Dylan, the victim that this whole case is about, their child? Is because they don't want the jury to feel sympathy for Dylan. The minute that the jury starts to feel sympathy for Dylan, it's over for the defense.
And I would ask that you hold them to that burden, hold them to that standard, hold them to that beyond a reasonable doubt that he spoke to you about yesterday, that the judge is going to fully instruct you on. We're going to ask that you make sure, prior to rendering your verdict, that you either have the facts that support that case.
Okay, they don't have anything. Bro, they really got nothing.
Ladies and gentlemen, you heard my co-counsel in this matter.
Here she's gonna try to get into it.
Mr. Stratton, who's representing Mrs. Groves, talk about how my client participated in helping her dispose of the body. You heard Ms. Hutchinson get up here.
Participated in helping dispose of the body. It's so interesting to see how a prosecutor would word that thought versus how a defense attorney words that.
That my client actually, after some misconception, that he did lead the law enforcement agency to the recovery of Dylan's body. But that's it, ladies and gentlemen. He only helped dispose of the body. He did eventually cooperate with the police because he couldn't lie about it anymore. And I believe that you will hear law enforcement come in and talk to you about that. He led them to where Dylan had been placed. He did not cause his death. He never kidnapped him. He never caused his death. He never endangered him. He never interfered with custody. He never caused harm to this child. He cannot be the source of felonious assault that he has also been charged with. And that's what I want you to listen for. Either that's going to be proven or not proven.
Y'all know this is prevalent in our society. Men really be sitting there sometimes like, I didn't do anything. Y'all know that he had more to do with this than they're letting on. I mean, he was the one that was complicit. Jessica, they were both participating.
And it is our position that that will not be proven by the state. That will be accounted for by the actions of Jessica Groves. And she is going to own all of those actions.
Man, they really put it
and
all
she
on the
will
line.
tell you in her own words, or we anticipate her telling you in her own words, how, whether you call it my client was blind, whether you call it that he was foolishly unaware.
Didn't care? No,
as Mr.
didn't
Stratton
care.
pointed out.
Did not care. If you see a baby crying, disheveled, hungry, whatever, and you make a choice to continue to tend to your own needs, that is a choice. That is being, that's not just being complicit. That's literally making a choice. You guys know I try to give leniency when it's a public defender that's just trying to do their job, but like, I personally would not be able to do this job. I could not do it.
He had no participation.
Oh,
and he was not the source of the injuries that resulted in Dylan's death.
If Daniel was the father, he made a choice to see that Jessica, even if it was, quote, all her fault, was pregnant with his child. He didn't do anything. He was not a father in that moment either. I hate the thought of them saying, oh, you know, she's going to take 60% responsibility and he's going to take 40 or 70, 30 or whatever. Like, to me, they are both equally horrible people that made horrible choices and could have done anything at any point to save their son. If one of them stood up and gave pushback to the other, they could have done something. I think that both of them were so weak-minded that if one of them had any said anything, pushed back on anything, the other one would have done it. Like, they would have been like, okay, you're right, we need to go take care of this child. I 100% believe that. What you guys are about to see is Jessica and the attorney that's basically on her side, lobbing her a few questions while she gets to cry. I really want you to see the first part of this so that you can see afterwards how much the energy changes when Julie comes in.
Did you, and you only, cause the death of your son, Dylan Groves?
Yes.
Did Daniel Groves participate in the killing of Dylan?
No.
I don't think she even believes that.
Was Daniel Groves aware of any of the injuries that you caused Dylan that may have led to his death?
No.
Did you hide all injuries that you caused Dylan from your husband?
Yes.
Did she hide? Okay, this is about to be my take. Now, I want to reiterate one more time, Jessica Groves. But what I want to point out here is something that I could possibly see happen on the back end on the legal team. This isn't all the time, but when there are couples where there's a female drug addict and a male drug addict, there seems to be this dynamic sometimes where sometimes the guy is the main drug addict and the girl kind of gets swept up to it because she'll do anything for the guy. She'll do anything to keep his affection, his attention. These are also like when you see these couples abusing kids sometimes, a lot of times it's just somebody trying to be cool girl and like going with the flow and all this shit, right? It seems like Jessica is the type of person that will do anything to keep her like man's affection or attention. And so if the legal team in the early stages before they've been separated for a long time can convince her like, hey, you should, he didn't do anything. You should really take the fall for this. Like, she'll do it if she's the type of person that would like do anything and everything for her husband, including hide murder. They all made a choice here, but it's just, I feel weird about them not taking equal responsibility. You know who she looking at. You already know.
The injuries that Dylan sustained happened on what date?
March 27th.
Dylan died on what date?
March 28th.
Jessica comes off to me as somebody that has no emotional maturity. Like, she comes off as she's stunted, still like a little kid. Right now, to me, she's acting like a little kid that's in the courtroom and being asked a bunch of questions about the bad things that she did. And another reason why I think that she has no emotional maturity is because whenever Jessica's had a problem, she just did drugs. She just probably drank, did drugs, fentanyl. Like, dude, come on. So she doesn't have any emotional tools at her disposal. So right now, she is just an 8-year-old girl in this courtroom. And that's why she's crying. She's not just crying because she feels remorse, because when you guys are watching her cry, you probably don't pick up the remorse that she thinks she's putting out. To me, this looks like a girl that's 8 years old and just crying because she's done something bad. That's more the vibe that I get rather than remorse.
As she previously testified, Patricia Kraft said that she had looked at Dylan. Did she do anything else?
Objection. Leading.
Your Honor, did Patricia Kraft do anything else to examine
No.
Dylan? Where did you take Dylan after he died?
He was at our house for a couple days.
And then where did you take him?
To the well.
What? Oh my God, dude.
Did you murder Dylan Groves?
This whole line of questioning sounds like a setup.
Did you murder Dylan Groves?
And also, if Jessica has the emotional maturity of a little kid, you can coach her to say anything. Am I tripping, or does this not sound like it was all rehearsed?
Does the state wish to cross-examine the witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Hutchinson, you may inquire.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Probably.
All right, y'all. Listen. We've seen this part before, but let's run it back.
This is a certified hood classic.
Tell the jury how you killed this baby.
Dude.
It was an accident.
Not your excuse. How did you murder this baby? How did you cause these injuries?
I have sit here and admitted
Answer the question, please. How did you cause these injuries?
it was an accident.
Not your excuse for what happened. How did you cause these injuries? How did you cause those rib fractures?
You know, in the beginning of this when he says she's going to take responsibility? It reminds me a lot of how in online narratives, people are always like, this person needs to be held accountable. They need to do this. They need to say sorry, da-da-da-da. And have you noticed how a lot of times when people are asking for accountability or someone to take responsibility, it never feels like enough, and people always ask for more? That's because when people ask you to respond to something bad you've done, they want to know that you're never, ever, ever going to do it again. And a lot of times, unfortunately, the way that we as human beings know that someone is never going to do it again is when we sense shame, embarrassment, like remorse, being frozen, them being completely submissive. When somebody is in a very submissive position, that's usually a signal to us as humans, they're never going to do this shit again. Like, they have come off their high horse, it's over, you know? So Jessica's sitting here and crying and just saying like, well, I admitted it. It doesn't do anything for anybody. The jury's not going to let you off just because you admitted everything that you did. Like, it feels like you would go out there and be irresponsible all over again.
I don't remember.
How did you cause that 1-inch skull fracture?
It had to be from dropping him.
How did you cause that complete upper arm fracture?
Nothing that I ever did was intentional.
I'm not asking you.
Nobody gives a fuck about your intent.
How did you cause that complete upper arm fracture? Tell the jury.
I have to live with this for the rest of my
Answer the question.
life.
How did you cause that complete?
You have devoured my family.
What? You have devoured my family. What does she mean by that? What does she mean by that?
I've admitted to my guilt.
How did you
And I have to live without my children. I'm done talking to you.
You are talking to me because you're sitting on the witness stand. Tell them how you caused that injury.
You know what though? In my time now watching court cases, Julie's not supposed to act like this. Y'all know, if you watch a lot of cases with me, you know at this point, Julie's supposed to keep a little composure. I mean, we here for it, but I ain't never heard anybody in the pit like this in court.
Tell them how you caused that injury.
Like, Camille ain't even come out that hard.
Judge, I ask you to instruct the witness to answer the question.
Ms. Groves,
Tell her to answer
by
the question.
testifying, you're subject to cross-examination. You have to answer the questions on cross-examination that
And
are
if your
relevant to these
attorney can't bail you out, you have to
proceedings.
answer.
If the question is a relevant question, you will answer the question at this time.
Well, we're waiting.
It's like a little kid. See, when she's going through her rehearse lines, she could just answer all day, but she can't.
I'll remind you of my earlier admonition to you to not discuss this case amongst yourselves or with anyone else. Do not permit anyone to discuss it with you or in your presence. It is your duty not to form or express an opinion on this case until it is finally submitted to you. Ms. Groves, you should remain seated where you're at. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you are excused at this time.
They did not zoom in on the justice with her crying. So the judge has basically said, Julie, take it down a notch. You're at a 9. We need you to bring it down to a 4.
Tell the jury how you caused that complete upper arm
He
fracture.
said, cool it down, Julie.
I don't remember.
You don't remember.
No, I don't.
You remember the day you said the injuries were caused on the 27th, and he died on the 28th, so you remember all that detail, but you don't remember how you caused that upper arm fracture.
No, I don't.
Tell the jury why you wrote on your calendar on April 24th, worst day ever when Daniel was taken, but there was no entry about the worst day ever when you killed that baby.
That right there kind of backs up what I was saying before about how she would do anything for Daniel, but her own child that she carried inside of her to term for 9 months, out the window. Only cares about the relationship between her and her dude. Do anything for her man, even take the fall for him, right up until the end.
I didn't kill my baby. It
You
was
didn't?
an accident.
How did you cause those injuries?
I don't remember.
Then how do you remember it was an accident?
Because I would never.
'Cause I would
hurt my
never,
children
yeah.
Intentionally. Never.
How did you cause those injuries?
I don't remember. I done told you that. And the worst day ever The day that I lost my last child, both of my children.
Look at this photograph, Jessica Groves. Don't, editor, don't do it. Do not. Don't do it. Look at this photograph, Jessica Groves. How do you not remember that? Tell the jury how it's possible that you would not remember doing that, if in fact you did it.
Because my mind wasn't clear.
Why?
Because of drugs.
Are you telling this jury that all of these injuries occurred at one time? In one incident?
Ooh. No.
Okay. How many times did you attack baby Dylan? That's right.
I never attacked him.
Of course she doesn't like that.
Then how many accidents did you have, Jessica Groves?
I don't remember.
Tell them what the accidents were.
You keep asking me the same questions and
Because you're not
the same
answering the
answers.
question, ma'am.
I told you I don't remember.
When was it that your husband realized you were pregnant? Wait a minute. When was it you realized you were pregnant?
Probably when I was about 5.5 months.
Which was when? What month?
October.
When was it your husband knew you were pregnant?
Toward the end of October, beginning of November.
How is it your husband didn't know you were doped up the whole time you were pregnant?
Because I kept it a secret.
Why did you guys tell your son that a dream catcher hurt that baby?
That's the dumbest thing I've ever
did.
heard.
Tell the jury about that. You said you didn't remember. Tell the jury what happened with that dream catcher.
I didn't think that dream catcher had injuries to that extent.
So that accident didn't cause his death?
No.
That sounds to me, I didn't think that dream catcher had injuries to that extent. That sounds like she almost wanted to say, I didn't think that the dream catcher could do that. She's trying to say it was an accident, like he got tangled up in it or something like that. Like, absolutely not. But if she had something with a thick frame and she was hitting her child with it, he's very young. It could do some major damage. That's what it sounds like she wanted to say there, and she had to correct herself.
Why didn't you tell Jody Kunkel there were all these accidents that killed my baby?
Because I was scared.
Of what?
Getting in trouble.
What's everything? You were scared of what?
Of admitting the truth.
Well, tell the jury what the truth is.
I
You didn't tell Detective Kunkel what the truth was. You didn't tell your son what the truth was. Tell this jury what the truth is.
I don't remember at all.
Why didn't you tell your sister Stacy Hall what the truth was? You told her this had nothing to do with drugs. I swear. Nothing, Stacy. I would tell you.
Me and Stacy has not had a lot of communication over my 40 years.
Ma'am, why didn't you tell Stacy the truth? That's the question.
Why would I?
Why wouldn't you?
I've never had any family support over
I'm
my
not asking about
40
your life history,
years.
ma'am. Why didn't you tell Stacy the truth?
Why would I?
Don't ask me questions.
Me and her's
Answer the
not
question.
that close. She is a half sister
Okay.
that we have never had that close
40
relationship.
years old.
So you lied to her.
Yes, I did.
And you lied to your son.
Yes, I did.
And you lied to Detective Kunkel.
Yes, I did.
But you want this jury to believe you just don't remember and you're not lying to them. Look at these ladies and gentlemen and tell them.
She's gonna say it.
I can't tell you something that I can't remember. and I
Who
would
wrapped this
never
baby's
hurt-
body in 6 layers of plastic and duct tape? Who did that?
I did.
You did. Daniel Groves didn't help you with that?
Yes, he did.
She wasn't supposed to say that. Her defense team's sweating right now.
Tell him about that concealment.
Rope him right in. Rope him in.
I wanted to be able to go back and get my baby.
Ma'am, I'm not asking you for comments. Tell the jury about the day you wrapped that baby in plastic. Tell them what happened.
I don't quite remember it all.
You don't remember that either.
A lot of times people that can disassociate very heavily, they initially learn to disassociate from all the bad things that are happening to them and around them. But eventually that disassociation can turn inward. And granted, she was on drugs, But you can disassociate from your bad behavior. You've probably met people like that before. They do something really bad and they just completely turn it off and they're like, that didn't happen. I'm okay. We're cool, right? And you're like, what the do you know how bad you screwed me over? And they're like, what do you mean? And they just live their life guilt-free by disassociating from their own bad behavior. So when she says that she doesn't really remember, I think it was a combination of drugs and her own disassociation because she doesn't want to face the music.
I remember bits and pieces, but no, I don't remember. Because when he died, part of me died.
No.
Where did you get all this stuff to wrap baby Dylan in?
Outside, I guess.
You guessed. No, I'm asking you for real. Where'd you get all this stuff?
I sure didn't get it out from under the kitchen sink.
And now you want to get sassy.
3 padlocks, 12 zip ties, 8 wire ties, 18 rocks. You don't remember that?
Not in detail, no, I don't.
That's not a whole heck of a lot of planning.
No.
Why would you do that if you didn't murder this baby on purpose?
Because I was scared.
Scared of what?
Getting in trouble.
Losing everything.
Is that why you're in here telling this jury this story today?
Objection. She needs to allow her time to answer the question.
She's not answering the question.
She hasn't done overrule.
Overrule, Ms. Hutchinson, make sure you don't talk over each other.
Yes, Your Honor.
I want you to explain to the jury this process up here.
I can't.
Why?
Because I don't recall.
Who drove baby Dylan out to that well?
We both
Both
did.
of y'all, yeah.
Tell the jury how that happened
They
and
did
what
it
you
together.
We took him out to the well
How'd you get there?
on the four-wheeler.
And then what?
We put him in the well, then we sit in the field and cried.
I don't believe that for 1 second. I think that they put Dylan in the well, and then they went home and they did more drugs.
Why is it that when we watch this video of you and your husband at the sheriff's office, there's not all this crying? I'm so worried about the dogs. Is that what you said?
I was in shock. I've been in shock. I've never got a chance to grieve the death of my baby.
You never planned to.
Judge, I have additional questions, but I'm not going to ask them.
Oh my God, that's pretty funny.
Jessica?
He looked bewildered. Jessica, we're gonna go off script for a minute because Julie just asked you some hard-hitting questions, and I didn't prepare you for this because you're a little fragile and have the skills of a small toddler.
You're finally coming clean, correct?
Yes, I am.
Nature of the objection.
Pleading the witness.
Back to the script.
Rephrase your question.
Dude, he is texting about cleaning the windows. He texts. If you are feeling a lot of empathy right now for Jessica because she's crying, you're gonna get played a lot in your life. Take it from me, my boy. Like, if there's anything that I feel bad for Jessica about, it's that clearly the woman had a really hard life. I believe she probably had a really hard life, a really traumatic life. And she didn't have the tools to work on those things. She didn't try to find them. She didn't have access to them. I don't really know. And then by the time she's in her 30s and 40s, she just continued doing hard drugs. That was a choice. That's a choice that we often know is bad. But if you know something is bad and you continue to do it, then you are making a bad choice. Like, no matter what tools you do or don't have, you know what a bad choice is. And you can say, well, man, I don't know how to stop doing this thing, but I know I need to stop. And she didn't do that. I don't have any sympathy for people that make the same choice over and over and over and over again when they know that it's bad. When you make a bad choice 5, 10, 20 times, you become a bad person. Point blank, period. And no amount of tears is gonna change that. No matter how hard of drugs that you're doing, you get to a point where you know you need to get help. Jessica was clean for 3 weeks. I have way too many thoughts about this, and there are way too many nuances in it. I'm not getting caught in that trap right now. I think a lot of y'all that watch me, you know how I feel. There are so many people I know that could be on the hardest drugs. They could be doped the up. And if they see somebody shaking a baby, they're gonna be like, oh, dude, you can't do that. That's a baby. We should get that baby to a hospital. That's what I meant, okay? That is absolutely what I meant. So many addicts would take care of the child if these people made that choice.
However, do you recall whether or not Daniel Groves participated in the actions that caused Dylan's death?
No, he did not.
Okay. Did he in any way cause Dylan's death?
No.
Did the dream catcher falling on the baby cause some bruising on Dylan's head?
Did the dream catcher falling on the baby cause a bruise on his head? There's nobody in the jury that's gonna buy that.
Slightly.
Okay. Is that what we heard Daniel Jr. testify to yesterday?
Yes.
Was there a laceration as a result of that bruising?
No.
Did that result in his death in any way?
No.
Originally, you were scared of admitting the truth, correct?
Yes.
You're admitting to that truth during the course of this trial?
Yes, I am.
And the truth includes that Daniel Groves did not participate in Dylan's death, correct?
So much of this is them just bailing out Daniel Groves, and that bothers me so much, dude.
The only part that Daniel Groves participated in was helping you to dispose of Dylan's body and place his body in the well.
I never noticed this about the Jessica Groves trial. 60% of their argument is like, by the way, it was all your fault, right? This guy over here, you know this guy, you love him, you know him, it's your man, you do anything to protect him, right? He's good, right? And you did it. You did it, Jessica? Okay. All right. I feel like that's really taking advantage of her. She's in the throes of addiction. She feels like her life is not important. She feels like she's nothing. She feels like she's nobody, and she's constantly trying to mask those feelings. That is the exact person that would give their life for somebody else. And in this case, it's Daniel.
He was not aware of any of your actions that caused baby Dylan to pass away, correct?
No, he was not.
Did he help you hide those actions?
How many years did he get?
Yes.
But only by disposing of the body after Dylan had already passed away, correct?
Yes.
You both took great care to wrap his body in plastic?
Yes, we did.
You guys took great care to wrap his body in plastic. I can't listen to the defense anymore. That's too much for me. This gives me so much more context to why Julie was so upset. It wasn't just because she wanted justice for the child, but it's also because she wanted the fairness of both of them going down. Julie was so passionate because she had to prove that both of them were equally accountable. Now, I know that we've seen her closing statement before, and it's kind of long, so we're not going to watch the whole thing. I just want to see part of her statement again to see if it matches up with this new perspective I feel like I see.
At this point, I have good news and I have bad news. The good news is that your service here as jurors is almost complete. The bad news is that the most difficult part of your service is about to begin.
She's honestly
and that
really
is your
good.
Deliberations. His Honor, Judge Kuhn will instruct you as to the exact law that you are to follow and what applies in this case. But I'd like to take a few minutes just to assist you in understanding what it is we believe we need to prove here, what we have proved, and how that relates to the charges. We discussed at the beginning of the week, as to all charges, the defendants are equally charged and can be found guilty as the principal offender or by acting in complicity. In other words, if you find that either of these two defendants aided or abetted the other, each defendant is guilty.
She really is fighting to make sure that there is justice for Dylan and Daniel gets equally charged. That's what she's trying to do. And she's pissed that they tried to pin it all on Jessica too.
His Honor will further instruct you that complicity includes conspiring with one another to commit offenses. Again, if something I say differs from something Your Honor says, you are to follow his instructions. So let's talk about the charges and the evidence that you've heard this week. Count 1 again is aggravated murder. The state of Ohio must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendants did or were complicit to purposely.
I think they did. No,
I'm going to go through some of these individually. Purposely, I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, that multiple rib fractures are purposeful injuries. Those aren't accidental. I submit to you that multiple skull fractures that happened at different times, and even at a time different than the rib fractures, are purposeful. I submit to you that the multiple complete arm fractures and leg fractures are purposeful.
Head, ribs, arm, legs.
Can I say what mechanism was used to cause baby Dylan's injuries? No.
Here
And
comes.
you heard defendant Jessica Gross, she can't remember what happened. I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you are the finders of fact. You go back to the jury room and you determine what happened here. Did failure to seek emergency medical care after multiple serious injuries over a period of time cause baby Dylan's death? She can't remember.
Dude, she's so
And he
good.
did nothing.
That's right. His own flesh and blood did nothing.
Element, count 2 murder, requires the state of Ohio to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that
They know they're going to jail. Goodbye.
these 2 defendants did or were complicit in knowingly. His Honor will instruct you that a person acts knowingly, regardless of their purpose, when they're aware that their conduct will create a certain result. Are you aware that 3 violent incidents is probably going to result in a baby's death? Daniel Groves doesn't see anything wrong with bashing a baby in the head 4 times.
Oh my God. That's what I said.
Or
I'm
picking
sure.
it up and squeezing it and shaking it.
Oh, wow.
You can do that to a baby? He watched this happen to his own son, baby Dylan. He says by his own wife. The man that Children's Services placed this baby's safety upon did nothing. That's not complicity. You let her around that baby one more day after you saw that, and you're not complicit to this whole thing?
Dude, y'all know I don't know how to shut the hell up. And Julie is the one person that can make me quiet for a whole minute straight.
Count 3, kidnapping, requires us to prove that these defendants in this case, again, baby Dylan was under 13, so by any means, that they remove baby Dylan from the place where he was found or restrain his liberty for the purpose of hindering, impeding, or obstructing a governmental function. I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, that every single time.
Dude, there's just nothing better than somebody that's ticked off and they know their stuff. Some real beautiful magic comes out of that.
You heard the testimony. The initial plan involved Children's Services seeing face-to-face baby Dylan weekly. At some point, maybe that went to monthly. You all determine that. And you also heard the Children's Services workers say that at any time, if they requested to see this baby, these defendants were to submit to that request. Whether Children's Services filed or asked criminal charges to be filed on each of those occasions is not an issue here, because you're the finders of fact. You go back there and determine whether or not they violated the law. I submit to you they did. Between February 4th and February 25th, Children's Services caseworker testified there were numerous attempts to contact these defendants about baby Dylan,
Then a
such
month
that
later,
they ended
found
up
him.
going to Daniel Jr.'s school to try to pass messages to his parents. From that visit on February 25th to March 28th, numerous attempts to make contact. After March 28th to June, when baby Dylan's body was recovered, numerous attempts to make contact by Children's Services, by law enforcement, by juvenile court.
They would have never found him if they didn't keep calling.
Count 4, endangering children. As a parent, guardian, custodian, person having custody or control in loco parentis of a child under the age of 18. These defendants at the time, the testimony was, were not the custodians. Children's Services were the custodians. But they were certainly the parents, and they were certainly the people in control. Therefore, they had a duty to prevent substantial risks of health and safety to baby Dylan. and they violated that duty of care, protection, and it resulted in serious physical harm. Actually, death. So more than serious physical harm. Did either of these defendants tell you that they made one emergency phone call to help that baby?
What is it gonna be?
Could he have survived his injuries? I don't know. He wasn't given a chance.
That's heavy too. Because they didn't seek medical care for him. After any of the fractures, any of the things that they did to him, they didn't seek medical care for him.
Did Daniel Groves create a substantial risk to the health or safety of baby Dylan, therefore violating his duty? His duty. Children's Services made that his duty. To take care of and protect baby Dylan from serious physical harm and death by allowing her to come right back around after she bashed him in the face 4 times and squeezed him by the rib cage. These defendants dumped him in a dark 30-foot well of water and left him there for months. And I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, that had Detective Conkle not had the training and experience to put them in a room together and listen to what they were saying, we would have never found baby Dylan's body. You listen to the whispering. If they find his body, we're effed.
Oh, that's what they said in the interrogation.
There was nothing that came out of that witness stand that explained how those injuries could have all happened at one time. So you have multiple counts to consider. You are also the judges of credibility. So you determine who sits on that witness stand and who's telling the truth. Whether you believe some of it, all of it, none of it, you determine that. So let's talk about reasons why you may or may not believe defendant Daniel.
Because he just sat there and said I had nothing to do with it.
It was that Children's Services took the baby. Then it was that he just found baby Dylan dead. Nobody killed him. Next, he told Daniel Jr. the dream catcher hurt the baby.
The dream catcher. I will never get over that.
In a jail visit, he tells a female he didn't kill him or dump his body. He didn't have anything to do with any of this. And yet another version that we heard in here this morning was that he watched his wife strike that child in the head 4 times and snatch him up by the ribs. You all go back there and decide what's truth and what's not. If you believe that he wasn't the principal, then discuss whether or not he was complicit. And we've talked about some of that, about Children's Services placing the baby with this defendant.
Dude, she probably feels so guilty. She shouldn't, but that's what guilt does to you. It also makes me wonder if they told Jessica and Daniel, like, let's just have Jessica take the fall. You know, she's a woman, so they're gonna give her a lighter sentence. I bet you they probably ate that up. BOZE conspiracy land, but I just have a feeling that was a mechanism because the way that they did this is just all really gross.
How is he complicit? Who was it that Children's Services was having all that contact with? She testified it was Daniel Groves, that he had 4 different phone numbers she was trying to communicate with.
They got their child back. Why?
He was foolishly unaware that his wife was pregnant for so long.
Dude.
Yet their 15-year-old son knew and confronted her. He was foolishly unaware that she was getting so high, yet everybody at the hospital recognized it.
Dude, she is eating away at his credibility right now, just munching on it, bro.
You heard Detective Conkle testify that he's dope sick, rolling around the interrogation room, foolishly unaware that baby Dylan was injured so seriously.
He was dope sick getting interrogated.
You've seen the pictures. You heard that 15-year-old little boy describe that baby as having bruising all around where his hair would be expected?
Dude, Corgi said, now think about the son who had a little brother that he wished he could have protected more than everything. He probably wished he did more for his little brother. The guilt that hits so many people from one or two people's horrible decisions, it's just insane.
How would he describe that picture from the autopsy if that wasn't the way that baby looked? But defendant Daniel Groves didn't know, and Daniel Jr. said it was a matter of time after he sees this that the baby disappeared. He didn't know. He couldn't have called right then for emergency medical assistance to give baby Dylan a chance to survive. I submit to you that's the least he could have done. You're expected to believe that these parents, who everyone from the hospital testified, never asked questions about that baby when he was removed and couldn't breathe, stayed glued to each other, and then packaged up their baby and threw him in a 30-foot well, were suddenly so caring that they wanted to hold baby Dylan every time Patricia Kraft was there. I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, that's the way it's been from the time that baby was born to right here this week. Against their own children.
Dude, she just makes you want to listen to her. Have y'all ever heard me be this quiet before during a case? I was thinking, is it because it's late? And I'm like, no, I just get sucked into everything she's saying.
Did she take responsibility when she spoke with Detective Conkle? She take responsibility when she spoke to her sister?
No.
Did she take responsibility in here this morning when she spoke to you? She can't remember what happened, but she does remember it was an accident. Is that taking responsibility for these injuries? You're expected to believe defendant Daniel Groves, everything he said in here. The same guy who, after they say the baby was dead, tells Children's Services in a text message he's growing like a weed.
Growing like a weed.
You were told that Daniel Groves panicked and dumped baby Dylan in a 30-foot well. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, does this look like panic to you? Does it? A chain, 3 padlocks, 12 zip ties, 8 wire ties, 18 rocks, 6 layers of plastic and duct tape. Does this look like panic? I submit to you it looks like extreme planning. They want you to believe they're not complicit to their baby's murder. But this is what they chose for a coffin and his burial? This?
Dude, she really turned around and looked at him and she said, this is what you chose. I can't imagine anybody going back in the jury to deliberate from this and say not guilty. Can't imagine it. Can't imagine it after you listen to Julie say all this. Nope.
And then they dumped him in a well.
Julie.
Proof beyond a reasonable doubt.
Guilty.
Guilty on each and every count.
God.
Each one of them.
Y'all know the judge told her to tone it down last time, so she had to try to keep it together. But you know what? I say let it out, Julie. Get in the pit, Julie. And I honestly say after 2 years of watching like other court stuff on my channel, Julie's one of the most impactful prosecutors. I very much feel that way.